Welcome to Camel Call Friday with Evan Budrovich. I'm Chris Hemeyer. Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud. You can find us and all episodes at all of these places. Just search Camel Call Podcast. There is a lot of awesome stuff going around athletics and everything else with homecoming next weekend. But I want to tell you about a special event we're having this coming Friday at 7 p.m. at the Student Union, our Campbell Basketball School documentary. Really kicks off homecoming weekend, absolutely free. If you don't know the story, it's a great story, and we've put together a 30-minute look back at an incredible part of this campus's history.
COVID was a weird time for many reasons, but in our department, just behind the scenes, we were down to me and you in the department, and we needed some help. So we found Divine Utley, who was living in Raleigh, a Missouri grad. I think that's probably how you found her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she comes in pretty new to the whole sports side of things, but loves storytelling, did documentary storytelling at Missouri, was in their documentary film program, and we said, hey, here is this great basketball school that Billy Liggett wrote a tremendous story on, probably 4 or 5 years before that, but we've never had the chance to go find these people and meet them in person and tell their video side of it. So Divine and yourself and Angelina and Mason Tucker, and I was at a couple of shoots. Like, it was sort of a all hands on deck, not your multi-million-dollar production team, but we made it work. And Divine, to her credit, spent probably a whole semester, if not 6 months, grinding out this video. And we haven't had the chance with COVID to really showcase it and develop it. But, I mean, they drove out to Greenville, out to Virginia, up to Raleigh, went out to some random cities in North Carolina, too, to find these people. And the fact we got to see them in person, you know, Wanda Watkins, obviously one of the signature people in the story, but Coach Lee, Coach McGeehan's in it, Coach Fisher with their modern perspective. And I like, too, that it showcases, and there's so many pictures, right? But the fact that Michael Jordan and there are NBA players up and down. Magic Johnson was on this campus. Coach UCLA, John Wooden was here running the camps. Like, there were legit college basketball people in this building. You talk to people at NC State, at UNC, they know the Campbell Basketball Camp. That was before the Roy Williams camps. That was before the NC State camps. Like, this was the premier camp in the late 60s, 70s, and partially the 80s, where every kid said, oh, yeah, I know Campbell because of Carter Gym, or I know Campbell because of the basketball camp. And being able to showcase that in video is going to be awesome.
It was amazing because if you don't know the story, it's a great story. And Google Campbell Basketball School, you'll see Billy's great article, and this is what propelled us to get this because he did such a deep dive on it and got so much information. But basically, it was the first basketball camp in the world. You have to go all the way back into the 50s. Camps weren't things to learn individual skills in the summer. Everything was about teams. You were on your teams. You got individual lessons, everything like that. So this was the first basketball school in the world, which was an amazing starting point.
There were YMCA type stuff where you go hiking, but there was never sports camps.
Right.
And then from a basketball standpoint, it was centrally located in the state. They had some nearby high schools that helped partner because you couldn't host it all here, but they would stay in the dorms. They would eat at the dining halls. There's great pictures of Michael Jordan waiting in line to get food with hundreds of fifth graders all standing around. At the time was the old dining hall, but like that idea that college basketball coaches, Coach Valvano came here and worked as a coach. Like, there are big names. Of course, John Wooden's the biggest, but so many of these players would come back. And this was before you would get paid for camp. So it was like, hey, you come volunteer for a week and we'll give you a place to stay. I have heard the pickup games at night, and that's touched on in the story. But when the college guys would play at night in Carter Gym, which was a Division I court, some of those neat games were so interesting because the fifth graders would sit in the stands and watch future NBA guys battle it out. So that's what makes this really cool.
Yeah, the pictures of who was here on campus, again, the location is what did it because basically, and Stan says this early on, if you were an ACC coach or a good ACC player in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, you spent at least a week of your summer here at Campbell Basketball Camp. So the weekend of homecoming, Friday night, 7 o'clock, it's free at the Student Union Theater. It's going to be great. We're going to have kind of a question and answer session about some of the people that were in it, and then Divine's coming back too, who made the whole thing. So
this isn't Apple TV. There's no like $9.99 purchase fee to watch this film. Just come to the Union, park in the lot, and you're all set.
Yep, it'll be good. 30 minutes. So we hope to see you there. Okay, volleyball this weekend. It is fall break. All of our teams are either off this weekend or out of town. Volleyball back home though, and this is a huge weekend. Our volleyball team finally returns home Saturday at 1 p.m. It's their Dig Pink match for Cancer. Then they'll play Sunday at 1 p.m. Both matches on Flow Sports. Both matches free admission. If you are not familiar with volleyball in the CAA, this year the teams play the same team back-to-back on weekends. So if you go away, you play them Saturday, Sunday, come back home. Those are your only matches of the week. But Campbell will finally be home for 3 of the next 4 weekends, 6 of their next 8 matches. The team is tied for 3rd in the conference, and they have split series with 3 of the best teams in the conference on the road, including, Evan, a 3-set win over defending champion Towson on the road last weekend. Evan, what has made this team so tough?
One, the conference is bonkers. 7 teams are 5-3 or better, right? And only 6 make the playoffs. So first place, 6-2. You're out of the playoffs at 5-3. Just tells you that the parity of this league. And then secondly, and this is to Greg Gorl's credit, we struggled to slow down Towson. They hit 310 in match 1 Saturday. Match 2, we hold them to 150 hit percentage. So you take their offense in half. Getting McKenna Shaka back has been huge. Their setter. We talked about her concussion issues. She's been back the last 2 weeks. The offense is more in rhythm. And then 2, defensively, they dug out a ton of balls. And this pink dig for Cancer, hard to say that 5 times fast, night will be amazing because this weekend Charleston and Campbell are ranked 1st and 2nd in digs, which means the fewest amount of balls that hit the court. They keep balls up. They keep it in play. You have to work hard to score. This could be one of those slugfest 15-13 5-set matches type of thing where you're going deep into the 5th or into the 4th. Both are defensive-minded. Campbell's strength this year has been its ability to dig shots, have a good presence at the net. And then Gwen Wolko, a sophomore who was all Big South freshman last year, she's getting better on the outside. Very inconsistent. Like you look at her stats and it's 12 kills, no errors on Saturday, 6 errors, hits -200. And it's so frustrating at times. But when she's really good, this team is unbeatable. And when she struggles, that's why they're 5-3. It's kind of that emotional roller coaster you ride.
Yeah, and to add, there is a lot of parity in this league, but at least how it's gone so far and what we know from previous years, Campbell has played probably the toughest schedule in the conference, and they are right there in the playoffs if it ended today. So the schedule now breaks in Campbell's favor. 5 more series, 10 more matches. 4 of those series are against teams either tied or behind them in the standings. 2 against 2 of the bottom teams.
Yeah, you got to beat Hampton and A&T.
Yeah.
So you end the year with 4 matches that even in the Big South, Campbell would go, those are 4 wins.
No doubt.
So you're sitting at 9 wins. You probably need 10 or 11 to get into the playoffs. So these next 3 weeks, Northeastern, obviously Charleston, and then Hofstra coming up. God, they go to Hofstra in October. That's going to be great. Halloween weekend in upstate New York.
Well, both of most of the conference championships are predetermined, usually by who won last year and certain things. So the conference tournament will be at Towson. Interesting for a couple of reasons, because Campbell has gone up there and played, and they have won Towson. So Campbell gets into those playoffs, and man, they're going to have all the confidence in the world, which is cool.
And what I love, too, there's an element of finishing as a top seed, you're in position to host next year. So that Towson win, now the tie-breaking scenarios are going to be awful. It's going to be so complicated because Campbell's 1-1 against Wilmington and 1-1 against Delaware.
We'll be able to break them down for you right here on Camel Call Friday.
And 1-1 against Towson, right? So the seeding may get complicated the next 3 weeks, but yeah, it's nice to see them in person. And then 2, they're the right now of the CAA teams. They're the one that's had the best success. And it's been hard in this league, and we've talked about that. But volleyball has shown, and to Greg Gorl's credit, they can compete in almost any mid-major conference, and they're showing it this year.
Yeah, 1 p.m. coming up this Saturday and Sunday. One of the calls Evan will be on. If you can't come and see it, go to Flow Sports. All right, men's soccer team, you look at the record, you look where they are in the standings, you might think, okay, but look, we've been telling you, they travel to Elon, which is a huge CAA matchup, 7 p.m. on Saturday on Flow Sports. If the Camels take down a last-place Elon team that is very down, things will look better and better for their chances to finish in the top 6, qualify for the CAA tournament. They are right now in a 5-way tie for the 6th and final spot.
Which, isn't that kind of funny? Like, we talk about how many teams should get into a conference tournament. Well, when 5 of them are tied for the last team in, it sort of shows that's the perfect number. It creates urgency. It creates a sense of earning points. You know, Campbell's had a tough luck with draws, 2 of them in the conference,
no doubt,
including Delaware, who's right there with them in the standings. You're right, though. This Elon match, the women were so clutch last week, winning a match and earning a draw in the last moments. The men are in the same spot. They need 3 points because when you're at 5 and there's 4 or 5 other teams with you, you just got to get as many points as you can.
Yeah, they have to get those points at Elon, which they should. And after that, William and Mary at home next week on homecoming, who they are tied with in the standings. Then they hit the road for their last match of the regular season at Monmouth, a team in 4th. So again, everything is in Campbell's hands. They just have to go out and do it. Women's soccer that you mentioned, the women have a tougher path to qualify for the CAA tournament, but again, the schedule moves in their favor. They're at winless Hampton. That's Sunday at 1. You get 3 points there. Then that keeps their hopes alive, and we will kick off the homecoming festivities. This game is not streamed, so come on out and cheer them on. They'll take on Elon, a team around them in the standings Thursday at 7, and then much like the men, if they can get these 2 wins against teams that they would be favored against for, their postseason berth will most likely be decided at Monmouth on October 22nd at 1 p.m., a week earlier than the men. The difference here is, you know, the Campbell women can win out and still miss out on the playoffs because there's a lot of teams in front of them. But as you know, Evan, they've been playing a lot better. Unbeaten their last 3 matches. You called one of those matches a big comeback win last week versus Drexel.
Their biggest issue, and Jeff Gross had known this, was scoring goals, right? So 5 draws, they have 1 or less goals in those matches, right? When they're scoring, they're earning results. The tough part, to your point, Wilmington, who beat Campbell on the road, they're 6 points ahead. So to chase 6 points, you know, you can be a mathematician here, but there's only 3 matches left. You need to get 9 points. You need Wilmington to trip up a couple of times and get 3 points. I think 4 at the most if you get in a weird tie-breaking scenario. But essentially, this is a must-win-out scenario.
Yeah, you're right. Difference between that and the men need to win. They probably can go 2-0-1, even drop a match, still get in. Campbell has to win out and get a little bit of help. But again, you look at their schedule, and again, it was a win and a tie. By 1 goal. They have been so close for a rebuilding team. And believe it or not, the CAA tournament for the women begins in 2 weeks. It's played at the 1 and 2 seeds. Championship will be at the higher seed left. That's both the men's and women's side. Top 2 teams get a bye, and that's same for the men, which starts a week later. We'll throw cross country in there. It's almost fall playoff time. Trophies are going to be rewarded over the next month.
So the options right now in the women's side, which I find interesting, Towson, Hofstra, Monmouth. So you're thinking about travel scenarios. You go to Towson, who you played really well here at Eeks.
Yeah.
I mean, that match, they lost the lead in the last 10 minutes, but that could have been a draw, and Towson's really good. You have Northeastern that could slip up there, and that was a 3-3 draw here. A little tougher to play in Boston on that turf, obviously. And then the Monmouth-Hofstra standpoint, you haven't played Monmouth yet, but you'll have to beat Monmouth to get into the playoffs, so you may actually knock them out. You really don't know where you're going if you get in.
Yeah, and what I really love about this, the men still have an outside chance to get a 1 or 2 seed. They would have to need some help for that, so probably no hosting for any of these teams. But these are both teams that have won trophies year after year after year. They know what it takes in a conference tournament to turn it on and to win. They would be going into these tournaments, quote unquote, with nothing to lose as lower seeds. The pressure wouldn't be there, and the pressure is a thing.
And we've seen that with Presbyterian soccer.
Yeah.
That is how Presbyterian on the men's side has thrived. They've been Campbell's bugaboo in the Big South. I know High Point won the title last year, but PC is a team that spends 1/5 of the budget of anybody. They always find a way to play defense, and they make it ugly. I don't know if that's Dustin Fonder's strategy, but in terms of being a team that can be doubted or not as trusted in the playoffs, you come in with that confidence. And I think volleyball is the same way, where they have been to finals as 6 seeds and 7 seeds the last couple of years. They'll probably be in that lower third, 3, 4, 5, 6, not 1, 2. That's where you get to play with a little bit of looseness and confidence.
Yeah, no doubt. I would like to see all 3 of those teams, obviously, in the conference tournament. But again, I would give those teams pretty good chance to make some noise as well if they get in. Again, in the first year in CAA, much tougher conference, it would be an accomplishment just to get in the top 6. All right, football. No game this weekend, and boy, does it come at a perfect time. I joked with Campbell head coach Mike Minter. You know this, too, because it doesn't help us that usually there would be buys at the end of the year, really early. This is nice because it comes at a time where everybody needs a break. And for this football team, they have been healthy for the most part, knock on wood. They had a couple of big losses on defense, but other than that, they've been very healthy. They can rest up and get some guys back. A couple of tough practices, but then off this weekend as well. And they're coming off a win. They won their 3rd game on the road, which is something that has only happened one other time in the modern history of Campbell football. It was a red-hot Hampton team. They beat them 30-27 in a game that wasn't that close. After their defense gave up 49 points last week, their defense truly was big this week, forcing a couple of turnovers, propelling Campbell to win. Campbell had a 3-score lead going into the 4th quarter, kind of sat on it, let them score, but not.
One of the more impressive onside kicks I've ever seen, too, from Hampton.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't get the onside kick back, so a little bit, maybe too much, let them score a little bit. But again, Campbell had that game won going into the fourth quarter, and just
and they closed, right? You think about Elon, they didn't close.
Yeah.
You think about William and Mary, they probably didn't start well enough to win. You think about some of the other losses. They've had good first halves, bad second. Outside of the pick in the first quarter for Hodge, he was locked in.
Well, and that's the thing, too. They overcome adversity a couple times. It did not start well. It was raining. It wasn't supposed to rain. Williams threw a pick, and Campbell was down 7-0 on the road. You thought, how would they respond? They responded great. They didn't come out of the halftime locker room playing great. Hampton tied the score up, and then they ran away with it. So I like, too, again, how are they going to respond from another tough loss? They responded really, really well.
And it's interesting now. You look at the standings. Elon's 3-0, and we know the difference between those two. It is who can execute better. Elon did for a half, and they won that game. You look at Delaware 2-0, and they have a winnable game this week. They'll probably be 3-0. And Delaware comes here for homecoming. Now, we're not saying Campbell can win the league, but in terms of where they sort of sit in the conference, William and Mary at 2-1, their lone loss is to Elon. They'll be a good team. Campbell's right up with the heavy hitters in this league, which means coming out of this bye, you need to take care of business.
Yeah.
And homecoming is a big one. And especially with how good Delaware is, you win that game, and we talk about statements and playoffs and all that stuff, it really starts on homecoming. Now, the good news, the Camels are coming, the actual camels, the dromedary camels, the one-humps. They're arriving for the street fair and the whole thing. But then, 2, all of a sudden you get a winning record. You win on homecoming, which has been a bugaboo for this program in the past, and you're back in that playoff conversation, which would be huge for this program.
Yeah, it's to break it down even further, you got Maine at homecoming, 4 p.m. next Saturday. Campbell right now 2-2 in the conference, 3-3 overall with 4 conference games left. They will play at North Carolina too in a month, but they are 8 of 15 right now. You get into the top 5, you're able to make it. Campbell most likely needs to go 4-0, but here it is. They'll play Maine next Saturday, 4 p.m. at homecoming. They're 1-5. At Richmond, that's a tough team, a FCS playoff team from a year ago, 2-1, 3-3 overall. You're going to be favored in that game. You talked about 8th-ranked Delaware. In the top 10 for a reason. Delaware is great. They haven't beat a team with a winning record yet. They played a lot at home. Then you have A&T on the road. You've got to play very good in all these games to win. But Campbell, on paper, will be in favor at all but the Delaware game. And I'll remind you how Campbell went toe-to-toe with the top 5 team in the nation. They have shown that they can play with, quote-unquote, these ranked teams because of their offense.
And I'm not as worried about Campbell playing up to the good teams. I'm worried about how they play. And this Saturday with Maine's a great test.
Yeah.
Maine has struggled. Remember?
Homecoming, though, is the thing that I think it's going to be a sellout, a packed stadium. I think that's where homecoming coming off the bye, I don't worry about that as much. Am I wrong? Should I be wrong, Evan?
Well, and the last 2 years have been better. We have won 2 of our last 3 homecomings.
Oh, you're going to bring up the fact that we lost 10 homecomings in a row, some by ridiculously horrible fashion that me and you all got to watch.
There was a bit of a homecoming curse, and maybe COVID lifted
really
that
was.
curse because we've
How many games in a row was it?
It was 10. We lost 10 in a row before COVID.
Oh, my God.
And then have actually won our last 2 since COVID. Now, part of that was scheduling. The Robert Morris, wins. Actually, that wasn't homecoming. But, we've been able to win 2 in a row since. So this is a new streak. It's called a winning streak. It has happened before.
Man.
Quote from Major League.
Oh, my gosh. you look at this offense now when you can take a breath and really dive deep. Malik Williams, Campbell's quarterback in his 5th year, he is 4th in the country in passing right now, nearly 1,700 yards. More impressive than that, 2nd in completion percentage of 74%. More impressive than that doesn't show up in the stats. Yeah. He has completed passes to 15 different receivers. He does not have a Caleb Snead. He does not have a Julian Hill. He has a bunch of really good receivers. His talent, it's never been deeper, but he's not just going to one guy. He's not just going to two guys. He also has a running game, and that's what makes this offense go.
Where in years past, the running game was Hodge running.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to be Superman, and he doesn't run unless he has to, and he can move around to make plays go. This is a really great offense, 10th in the country in scoring, top 20 in a bunch of other offensive categories. That's why you look at this schedule and say, the defense, much like in the Hampton game, they don't have to be great. If they can just get a little better as this year goes on, if they can just keep the opponents to under 25 points, which is tough this day and age, they can win these games. And
I'm a USC Trojan fan, so Lincoln Riley has talked about this. USC has Caleb Williams, sort of in that Hajj Malik era where he's one of the better quarterbacks at his level. And the defense, he said, pitches a 5 ERA. They are not going to give you the 10-win pitcher on the mound. They just keep you in the game. They don't make big mistakes. Now, it's tough when our run defense has been exposed a touch. They played better against Hampton. If that run defense can keep you in the game and you're getting 2 or 3 picks, now the turnovers is where our defense could really excel. You're right, because when you're scoring 40 and you're allowing 25 and not 35, you're going to win 80% of your games.
Yeah, the running game depth as well. Campbell in that game against Hampton was without their first-string running back. Lamajah McDowell had an injury. He should be back. But 2 and 3, Rogers and McKay, they combined for over 200 yards.
Did you catch the whole McKay's dad's Mike Minter's barber, by the way?
Yes.
Did that just like slide under the county seat radar? Because I know we use the same barber, Terry Holder, down the street.
Yeah.
Here on Marshbank Street. But
all about you.
I may have to call the McKay family and see if I can get a fresh
Chris
cut.
McKay Jr.'s father, Chris McKay Sr., is Mike Minter's barber and has been. They talked about, hey, why doesn't your son come on as a walk-on? And now he is a third-string back that, again, as we talked about in the show, you can listen to the Camel Call Live podcast that dropped earlier this week. If you listen to the show, he could be starting at a lot of different places, but he has come here, bided his time, and now it's a deadly, deadly offense.
Also, lastly on Hodge, if Campbell can stay in the top 25, they'd have to win their next couple of games. All of a sudden, you talk about the Walter Payton Award, which is the FCS version of the Heisman.
He's got the numbers, yeah.
The quarterback has won it 7 straight years. It's a very quarterback-driven award at both the FBS and the FCS. This is his award to be in contention, right? And there was a year where Daniel Smith was in line for the Jerry Rice Award, which is the freshman of the year in the FCS.
Former Campbell player that transferred to Villanova.
And he was a 4-year starter at Campbell under Dave Marsh, nickels and dimes, if you know what I'm saying. If you know, you know.
Former offensive coordinator and roommate of Evan Budrovich.
So, but with Hodge, if he puts up a 30, 35 touchdown season with running and throwing and keeps his interceptions low, which he has, and the team is ranked at the end of the year, then you have the formula to be a Heisman, or in this case, a Walter Payton Award winner.
Everything's in front of Campbell. Again, much like I've laid out to our other teams, volleyball's in a different category because they don't have to go on some winning streak. Yes, these teams have to win a lot of games. Campbell has to win a lot of games. But halfway through the season, it is still very much a possibility that Campbell could make their first ever FCS playoffs, which would be phenomenal in their first year in the CAA. Public service announcement about homecoming. Next week, we'll have a homecoming show. It'll be great. We'll be able to lay out everything that's going on. You can go online, campbell.edu. It'll tell you all of the events, both awesome stuff from the university side and from the sports side. But the game, 4 p.m. on Saturday, it will sell out.
Right.
If you walk up to the gate day of or even try to purchase tickets online day of, you will get standing room only. Evan Budrovich cannot get you a ticket to the homecoming game.
And I've tried.
I cannot get you a ticket to the homecoming game.
I can't even get a Camel to the ticket.
No.
They have to stand outside the gate
and
give rides to fans.
So please, go Camels.com next week during regular business hours, 1-877-GO-HUMPS. Trevor Aaron and the boys will be able to set you up. But if you wait around till about Thursday or Friday, you can get into the game, but you're probably going to have to
You'll be standing by the parking lot.
Yes, yes. So definitely, this is a game which makes our homecoming so many things that we will gush, because Evan and I both really like homecoming, and here, homecoming is very, very special. But we will have Camels, which is good, and we will have a good football team that is playing another good football team, Maine football-only member of the CAA. I hope it's warmer than usual, because the guys up in Maine haven't seen some warm weather for a while, and that would be fun. But get your tickets today.
Hey, good news. Forecast 71. I mean, we're like a week out, but
Yeah.
I see 71 on
All
the
right.
forecast.
All right, I'll do it. Yeah, it'd be nice if there wasn't a hurricane or tropical storm during a home game, which it has been to the other home games. Evan, have a great weekend. I'm Chris saying so long. Thanks for tuning in to Camel Call Friday.
Happy fall break.